Bacalhau, salt cod, is a deep part of Portugal's culinary identity. But the fish is found far from the country's shores, so how did this love affair come to be and continue today? On a cold winter's evening in Portugal, it might come to your table calm natas, fresh from the oven and bubbling in cream, layered between fried potato and sliced onion and spiced with nutmeg. Weaving through Lisbon's steep and cobbled streets, it wouldn't take long before you found someone serving it as a light and crispy fritter, dusted with a little coarse salt and dished up with a pot of pungent aioli. You could buy it shaped as mouth-sized fried potato dumplings pastéis style, flavored with parsley and garlic, for a walk along the banks of Porto's Douro River. You might even come across it as part of a hearty southern bread soup, topped with coriander and a poached egg. That's because bacalhau, or salt cod, which sits at the heart of all these dishes, runs deep through Portugal's culinary identity, with the country consuming 20% of the world's supply. In fact, so central to Portuguese hearts and stomachs is this ingredient that the saying goes there are 365 ways to prepare salted cod, one for each day of the year. But for a fish that is found only in the icy depths of the North Atlantic Ocean, far from Portugal's shores, the country's love affair with salt cod is a puzzling one. How exactly did it end up on Portuguese plates? The answer is wrapped up in more than 500 years of intriguing history. Take a trip today to most restaurants, markets, and cafes across the country, and you'll find salt cod in one form or another. It even plays a starring role at hip Lisbon restaurant Alma, which earned its first Michelin star within 9 months of opening and added a second star soon after. It's funny, sometimes Michelin star chefs or high-end cuisine chefs don't value salted cod because they don't see it fitting within this type of gastronomy, said Alma executive chef and owner Enrique Pessoa, of the typically humble comfort food. But I always have and always will have cod on my menus. He assures visitors that a salt cod creation will also feature on the menu of his new restaurant, Joia, which will open in London later this year. But though bacalhau is a traditional and well-explored ingredient for many natives across the country, Pessoa is still finding ways to push Portugal's love for it into new territory. Case in point, his most Instagrammable creation, Cobble Street Cod, named for its likeness to the centuries-old streets outside Alma's front door in the historical Chiado district. It's a modern twist on an old peasant dish and one of the country's most beloved salt cod recipes, bacalhau à brás, where typically shredded salt cod, fried matchstick potatoes and onions are all bound together with scrambled egg and garnished with black olives. I knew I couldn't call it bacalhau à brás because the Portuguese are quite traditional, and people sometimes get offended when you play around with classics, he explained. I wanted to get inspired by this dish, but elevate it presentation-wise, texture-wise and detail-wise into something more delicate and elaborate. The outcome is far removed from the version you'd find on family dinner tables. A creamy mixture of salt cod, fried potato, egg and onion arrives at the table hidden under a veil of wafer-thin slices of cod that have been coated in a black olive tapenade to create a cobbled visual. A final surprise comes when you break into the cobbled dome and spilt a confit egg yolk that has been resting in the middle of the salted cod mixture. I wanted to dislocate all these elements of the dish and try and make it as perfect as possible. When we launched it in the restaurant, it was an instant success. It was especially popular on social media because visually it is quite striking, said Pessoa. Pessoa's bacalhau dish is just one of the latest evolutions of a long culinary legacy, one that's wrapped up in centuries of history little known to those outside the country. It started towards the end of the 14th century, when the Portuguese Navy found that the dried and salted fish could be stored for years in holds, making it the perfect food for long ocean voyages. In the mid-1500s, during Portugal's maritime explorations and hunt to find the coast of India, they stumbled across waters rich with cod around Canada and Greenland, a major discovery that kick-started Portuguese cod fishing. But by the 16th century, Portuguese fishermen were pushed out by the French and English. In the centuries that followed, Portugal became heavily dependent on England as the main exporter of cod, and by the 1800s, the ingredient was something enjoyed only by the aristocracy. However, cod's popularity expanded in the 20th century during the reign of Portuguese dictator António de Oliveira Salazar, who wanted to bring it back home. His cod campaign, launched in 1934, looked to reignite Portugal's fishing and drying industry and instate cod as a national symbol. Thousands of Portuguese fishermen were sent to Canada and Greenland to fish for cod, with some bringing back up to 900 tons per boat. But this was long, grueling, and often dangerous work, and many men never made it back home to their families. It continued even during World War II, when one Portuguese lugger, the Maria de Gloria, was bombed as it headed towards the fishing banks on the west coast of Greenland, killing 36 people on board. These conditions still plague the industry today, with global fatality rates thought to top 24,000 a year, according to the Seafarers' Rights International. It's this complex history that makes Portugal's love for cod so deep-rooted, and it's why Portuguese food expert and chef Leandro Carrera dedicated more than 50 recipes to the product in his new book Portugal, the Cookbook. In total, it features more than 550 traditional recipes from across the country, including a raw salt cod salad, which mixes bacalhau together with barbecued red bell peppers, onions, garlic and parsley. "If I didn't include salt cod, I would have been in a lot of trouble," said Carrera. Cod has become so embedded in our culture over the centuries, since the trade of salt began, so it was so hard to choose which recipes would feature in the book. That love of salt cod still rings true today. "I know people who have eaten cod for more than 30 years every day," Carrera said. "My grandmother used to eat the same cod dish, cod with boiled potatoes, raw onion, garlic, olive oil, vinegar and parsley, every single day for lunch. Even I, and everyone I know, had cod at least twice a week." Cod is an incredibly flexible product. You can grill it, steam it, bake it, deep fry, you can make a cake with it, have it raw after soaking it in water. So, if you combine this with its affordability and its accessibility, you can see why it's popular. You can grill it, steam it, bake it, deep fry, you can make a cake with it, have it raw after soaking it in water. Portugal today imports around 70% of its cod from Norway. The Norwegian Seafood Council describes Portugal as by far the biggest market for Norwegian cod. They add that out of the 100,000 tons Norway exports annually to Portugal, 95% is salted. In Norway's remote and icy fishing island of Rost, they even have a name reserved for the heaviest of cod catches, Portuguese cod, said Pessoa, who, as a former ambassador for the Norwegian Seafood Council, visited the island several times. They know Portugal will pay the best price for that cod. This is echoed by Rita Karlsson, chief executive of Norway's Brodreen Karlsson, which has been exporting salted and dried cod to Portugal since the company's beginning in 1932. "Portugal is very important to Norwegian cod exporters, it's the most important country that we sell to," she said. "We couldn't have survived without Portugal." This influence has spread far and wide to countries like Brazil, which imported 8.6 tons of salt cod during the Easter period alone in 2019, or Angola, which imported 308 tons of salt cod from Norway in 2012, according to the Interpretative Center of the History of Cod, Lisbon's museum dedicated to the fish. In Italy, they even hold a salt cod festival, Festa del Bacala, every year near Venice, and in the Tuscan region they favor classics such as Bacala alla Livornese, which marries salt cod with a rich, garlicky tomato sauce. For other chefs in Portugal, salt cod bridges the past and present. Like Marlene Vieira, MasterChef Portugal judge, head chef of 2 Lisbon restaurants and the only female face within the chef's wing of Lisbon's Time Out Market, where her salt cod pataniscas, fritters, have won her accolades. She explained how the fritter recipe was passed down from her grandmother, who came from a poor background. This meant she typically used the cheaper tail cuts of the fish in the batter, which had less moisture and resulted in a crispier finish like tempura, an excellent companion to the roasted red pepper and garlic mayonnaise that Vieira now serves with it. As a child, she remembers helping her grandmother in the kitchen to do the things she wouldn't like to do, like peeling onions, garlic and of course carefully picking out any bones left in the salt cod. Today, while nodding to tradition, Vieira is keen to further promote the fish along with seafood local to Portugal, and her high-end restaurant Marlene focuses on just that. She even cooks it at home for her daughter, who, she said, loves cod, proof perhaps that despite the lengths the country has to go to secure this North Atlantic fish, the passion for it will continue to flow through Portuguese veins for generations to come. Salada de bacalhau cru, raw salt cod salad. By Chef Leandro Carrera. Prep time, 25 minutes. Cooking time, 20 minutes. Serves 4. Ingredients. For 50 g salted cod, desalted and rehydrated, by soaking the salted cod in water for up to 2 days, and changing it each day until the desired salt point is achieved. 2 red bell peppers. 2 eggs. 100 milliliters olive oil. 30 milliliters white wine vinegar. 1 small onion, peeled and diced. 2 garlic cloves, peeled and diced. 1/3 bunch flat leaf parsley, very finely chopped. Sea salt and freshly ground pepper to taste. Instructions. Check that the cod is not too salty before cooking. If it is, then leave to soak for another 2 hours. Drain. Prepare a barbecue or preheat an indoor grill or broiler. As soon as the barbecue coals are glowing, put the red bell peppers onto the grill rack and roast for 8 minutes, or until blackened all over. Put inside a plastic bag or cover with food wrap and leave to rest. Alternatively, cook under the broiler. Once the peppers are cool enough to handle, remove the skin and seeds, slice the flesh into thin strips and set aside. Once the cod has the desired saltiness, remove the skin and bones, then shred the flesh. Set aside. Have a bowl of iced water nearby. Bring a saucepan of water to the boil. Once boiling, add the eggs and cook for 6 minutes, then transfer them to the bowl of iced water and leave to cool. Remove the shells and cut the eggs into slices. Combine all the ingredients, except the parsley, in a serving bowl and toss everything together. Taste and adjust the seasoning with salt and pepper, if necessary, then add the parsley before serving.